morning, and thank you, Alan, for that kind introduction. It's such an honor for me to be here today with my family, Julia and Ellie, and our dog Denver. Hey, Denver. Thank you to the American Veterans Memorial Association and all the other volunteers for making today so special. Honoring those that sacrificed for our nation, those that have served, and those that are still serving. Memorial Day is more than just a long weekend or an official kickoff to this summer. It's a sacred day for us to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. We remember not just the lives lost, but the ideals they fought for, like the chaplain said, freedom and liberty. Here at this cemetery, we stand on hallowed ground. Nearly 4,500 veterans call this their final resting place, along with 30,000 others. It was established around 1910, and just about the same time it was established, another site here in the Los Angeles area was also established. Shortly later, in 1914, Fort MacArthur, down in San Pedro, California, was established by the Army to guard the entrance of the harbor. All along the southern shores of the Palos Verdes Peninsula, gun emplacements were put there. And the soldiers and their families, the families served as well, that lived at Fort MacArthur, their job was to protect the port. Protect the port against the threat of a foreign navy coming and potentially harming the economy that flows that port, the naval facilities there, or the shipyards. And the threat was real. In World War II, only 3 months after Pearl Harbor, in February 1942, a Japanese submarine surfaced off the coast of Santa Barbara and shelled an oil storage facility there. But due to the service of the soldiers and their families that lived at Fort MacArthur, the fate of that oil facility never fell on the port during the war. They protected that port throughout World War II, but then the threat changed. After the war, it became the Cold War. And the threat was still there for navies against the port, but the threat also expanded against Soviet nuclear bombers. And the soldiers and their families lived in Fort MacArthur. They responded to that threat. Now, not only were they responsible for protecting just the port, but the entire Los Angeles area. Many of you have probably seen or heard of the remaining sites of surface-to-air missiles, Nike missiles, that formed a ring around the Los Angeles area to protect the area from that threat. The men and women who served and lived at Fort MacArthur are the ones who did that for us. But then the threat changed again. This time it expanded beyond just Soviet nuclear bombers to Soviet intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. And now those that lived and served there had to expand their horizons beyond just the LA basin and think about how to help protect the nation. And about this time, the Air Force was forming as well in 1947. And now airmen and their families lived at Fort MacArthur and their surrounding areas. And through the leaders of people like General Bernard Schriever in the Air Force, it formed the birthplace of the United States response to build their own intercontinental ballistic missiles to help deter against the Soviets. And also, that's where the space program was born as well. It lives on to this day. But the threat has changed again. And now China and Russia again threaten the United States. And the threat extends into space. And Fort MacArthur still plays a vital role in our nation's defense. China, in 2007, launched a missile into outer space, destroying one of their own defunct weather satellites, and showing they could do the same for ours or our allied satellites that also are in that same orbit. In 2022, they had a satellite with robotic arms go up against one of their satellites, grapple it, and pull it out of its orbit, pull it out of its mission, making it ineffective, showing they could do the same to our satellites. In 2021, they launched a missile into space that went into orbit and then re-entered and struck a target at a Chinese test range, showing they could do what's called a fractional orbital bombardment, designed to evade our radars and our missile defenses, and leave our nation with very little notice to be able to respond. But China is not alone in these threats. Russia in 2019 launched their own satellite that shadowed one of ours and ejected small satellites out of itself, exercising their capability to have those small satellites damage ours. In 2021, they also launched their own missile into space to destroy a satellite, demonstrating that capability. If there was any doubt they intend to use counter-space capabilities in their conflict, we don't have to look any farther to the outset of the Ukrainian war, when in 2022, one of the very first things they did via a cyber attack was crippled commercial satellite communications that were used by the Ukrainians, and not only used by the Ukrainians, by a lot of civil and commercial organizations across the world and across Europe. The threat is real, and space is now a warfighting domain, just like the land was, just like the sea was and the air was, and now space is as well. And that's why the United States Space Force was established 5 years ago in 2019. The United States Space Force is dedicated to securing the nation's interests from, in, and to space. So why does space matter? Why do we need to secure those interests? Well, it's the ultimate high ground. And for anybody that's done any military reading or studying, you know the high ground really matters. You can see globally around the world, across the horizon, to distances we can only imagine. For the military, that means it allows ourselves to project our forces globally around the world. And quite literally, it's critical to our way of war. Everything about our United States military is built around the capability to have space capabilities. It's global positioning system, so you know where the ship is, where your plane is, where your bomb needs to go. It's satellite communications, that ship in the middle of the ocean to be able to communicate back and get the intelligence it needs, get the orders it needs to be able to prosecute its mission. It's getting weather reports in areas where you don't have other sensors, to be able to know where that Navy ship can go safely, where the airplane can do its mission planning. It's to get intelligence from on orbit, pictures, signals, in order to inform our warfighters. And near and dear to my heart, it's our ability to detect missile launches and track those missiles globally around the world to enable those that are downrange to be able to defend them. But as I mentioned, there's a threat to these capabilities. For most of our history in space, it was a benign environment except for the natural hazards that space exists. But you could launch a satellite and it would do its job unfettered. China and Russia and others have noticed how much we rely on space, and that's why they've built these capabilities I spoke about earlier. And now it's threatened. And Space Force's job is to protect those capabilities, to enable the joint force to be able to still use them in prosecuting the nation's interests. But not only that, we have to be able to hold others' interests in space at risk as well. For just as we have long used space to be able to enhance our military capabilities, Chinese and Russians are doing the same. But we have to make sure that their capabilities can't be used against our soldiers, Marines, sailors, and airmen. We have to be able to counter those assets the adversary would use against them. But space also matters to you. It's vital in our economy in ways that you probably don't think about, even know about every day. It's not just opening your phone, as Alan said, and putting up Google Maps or your map apps of choice and figuring out how to get to the cemetery today. Although that's important. But it's used in commercial air traffic, agriculture, other means to be able to make our nation more efficient and our economy more efficient. A little known thing about GPS is actually not the positioning data that it provides you, it's actually the timing. On each one of those satellites, about 30 in orbit, there's an atomic clock. And through the magic of a bunch of math and technology I won't try to get into here, I don't even understand it all, your watch, your phone, your GPS device can get that same benefit of that atomic clock on orbit. And you probably don't care if your watch is off a few nanoseconds here and there, but if you're trying to synchronize vast communication networks that enable that phone to communicate, the data rates that we all enjoy now and watch videos online or whatever the case may be, you need that very precise signal in order to synchronize all those devices, all those elements in the network. And that comes from GPS. Also, we're starting to see an emergence of commercial satellite communications with different capabilities being put up there to the point now where there's opportunities with your own cell phone to be able to talk to satellites. Our economy depends on space. Our military depends on space. And for over 100 years now, Fort MacArthur continues supporting our nation's defense and now extending into space. Fort MacArthur is now a Space Force installation, and now Guardians and their families live there. Now it's our turn to defend our nation. My family and I live there. Now it's my turn to again help defend the nation against dangerous actors that wish to threaten our nation, our way of life. That's what my team and I do every day. Wake up solely focused on developing the next generation of Space Force systems to detect missile launches and track them to enable our nation to defend against them. Our mission is simple: sense, make sense, and win the race we're in. We must never forget we're in a race against the threat. The Space Force motto is Semper Supra, always above, and that we must be. We owe it to the men and women that serve their country that lie here today and in cemeteries like this around the world. We owe it to our families and loved ones today, and we owe it to the great American generations yet to be born, and continue to do all we can to defend this great nation and all it stands for. Your United States Space Force will answer this call. We will answer this call by being always above, Semper Supra. Thank you.